Okay, live? Photo moments. Right, welcome again. It's just after 8, making good time. I just want to see my sound is. Just going to mute my sound here. It's not. There we go. Hearing myself on my computer. It's not always fun. Welcome to the talk. MVC in ASP.NET Core. This is not the old world. It's the new world. Who of you are web developers? And who of you are developers, actually? Who of you are in IT? Everyone, hopefully. Okay, so my talk is obviously about MVC. Who of you have ever heard of the new ASP.NET world and how they move and that kind of thing? All right. So a little bit about me. I'm a guy that likes ice cream. There's my Twitter. You can find me on the internet at reynders.co. I'm also on GitHub. There's an open source project I'm working on called Web API Proxy. There's contributions are welcome. It's a little client-side proxy generator for C# web APIs. And there's the YouTube channel where you can also see these fix-ups that we are broadcasting live. So we're going to be talking today about these guys. The new kids on the block. Now I'm joking. Do you know these guys? Anyone? Okay. So I'm just going to quickly run through a few slides because to paint you the bigger picture of what .NET, what ASP.NET actually is. Because to understand MVC, you need to understand sort of a broader picture of where it lives and how it works with the rest of the framework. So ASP.NET Core, as it is called now, it was previously ASP.NET vNext, then it was ASP.NET 5, but it's now said, okay, well, it's now ASP.NET Core. And that's where the name sticks, Core 1.0. They did an actual whole version rename or reboot rather. So it's been redesigned from the ground up to be open source and to target the global, to target the modern cloud-based server platform. You can run it side by side. One version of ASP.NET you can run with a different version of ASP.NET, completely agnostic. It won't hurt each other. There are also faster release cycles. So they're actually releasing faster because it's so modular. They can release time to market is quicker. You can get the bits much faster. Everything is done with the cloud mindset. So you can go from on-prem to the cloud. You can migrate your apps as you want, knowing that it will work on every server, on every cloud solution. And the best thing is for me personally is you can pick your own favorite editor. You don't need to use Visual Studio. Yes, you can use any text editor. For all those hackers out there, maybe can use Notepad or Notepad++. That can also work very cool. But yeah, for me, I normally use Visual Studio Code. That works quite well, especially with the new Roslyn bits in there and the new version that has nice IntelliSense and support for .NET Core. Now, let me just see. Like I mentioned, it's completely open source, and they expect and accept, I always mess this up, contributions. And this is a very important point. It's cross-platform. To continue on Marcel's talk about the Raspberry Pi, there was a mention on Owen, and where the web server is hosted in Owen host. Now with ASP.NET Core, it now can be hosted in Kestrel, which is the complete cross-platform server that runs now, in this case of the Raspberry Pi, can run on Linux. And it will be super cool because I'm going to show you like a demo from scratch. And hopefully it can work. And I mentioned it's fast. So from a bird's eye view, this is how it all fits together. You've got your massive big framework that we all know and love, 4.6 or 4.5.x, whatever. And then moving up in the stack, you have your ASP.NET 4.6. It's your system.web. That's the web forms and the web pages and the MVC and the web APIs that we know today. Nothing wrong with this framework, nothing wrong with this framework, nothing wrong with these application frameworks. Everything works. It's proven it works. But it only supports Windows. The idea was to, with this whole rewrite, is to make sure it's supported on all the platforms, meaning we want it to be working on a Mac, on a Linux, Windows, obviously. So if we move on this side of the whole overview, on .NET Core 1.0, completely modular. It has its own little runtime that's optimized for server and cloud. Now, moving up, you see this weird DNX thing. Now, what is this? Have anyone heard of DNX before? So DNX is ASP.NET's own little runtime environment they've created, while the .NET team was also busy doing their own little runtime host. So DNX will fall away later on. So this is specifically the host for ASP.NET applications. Because you obviously need a host to run your applications in. So on top of that, on top of the host, you have your ASP.NET Core framework, which is your web framework that runs on top of the host. Now, as you notice, it's a little bit off-center, and it's done deliberately to show that whatever it's to show that it also supports .NET 4.6 to make the migration easier if you want to go to .NET Core. Now, the components of .NET Core, I mentioned it earlier in my previous talks, is a subset of .NET 4.6. It's not the whole thing. So don't go and think, oh, I'm going to go WPF or use that cross-plat. It's a subset of the .NET framework, and they're slowly but surely migrating all the functionality across, and you know, to make it more modular. And on top, the title of the talk, MVC, which is the new MVC, the new MVC Core, the application platform, application framework that we're going to be talking about today. So a little bit rewind on the old previous ASP.NET frameworks. We had web pages, MVC, and Web API. We all used these before. I don't know if web pages, everyone used web pages before, but definitely MVC and definitely Web API. Some people used Web API stuff or Web API stuff inside MVC, like RESTful services and stuff. And you can't exactly do the same thing in Web API, but still. The thing is, they are not the same. They were different. It's 3 different pillars doing exactly the same thing, but with different components. Different meaning they exactly, you can call it copy and pasting of code maybe, but they each have, like MVC and Web API, each had their own controller sets, action sets, filters, model binding, and dependency injection. It just worked differently, but in essence, if you look at the code and how it works, it's the same. You know, it's the same stuff. Razor, they might be a little bit overlap, but the idea was this was complicated. You know, and people looked at it. It's like, yeah, is it now API controller? Is it a controller? Is it a underscore? What? No, just leave it. Then they decided to reboot this whole thing, this MVC, to make it the one ASP.NET framework that gives you these functionality. Putting on wires here. So these components that they provide us, number one being the hosting component, comes with the new Kestrel server that I've mentioned earlier. Now, Kestrel is the next generation, or the new managed server from .NET or ASP.NET. It also comes with a new startup model, which you can configure your pipeline and just add the bits you want. If you want ASP.NET MVC, you add it there. If you want logging, you add it. If you want SQL, you add it. It's not everything. You can have the whole kitchen sink by template, but you decide on what you want and how you want to be using it. That makes performance better, and that which means it can run on devices like the Raspberry Pi, because you can determine it's not all or nothing. It's the bits that I want as a developer to scale out. Mentioned the middleware. Default, it comes with default middleware like routing, authentication, error handling, sessions, cores, localization, but also your own middleware. You can write your own middleware, plug it in, and it will work. For instance, Swagger. Have you heard of Swagger before? Yeah. Swagger, there's a middleware for ASP.NET called Swagger. Plug it in, there's a Swagger endpoint, and it will work. There are new configuration. Let me just see. First, the dependency injection, very powerful point. They've made it so that dependency injection inside ASP.NET is a first-class citizen. So you can inject anything from anywhere. The idea is to have it available to your disposal and just make it work. And also its own little IOC container that it has, it injects stuff in itself to boot up itself. It's kind of weird, but it works. If you need to use something like Ninject or MEF, or not the other MEF, the MEF, you can just plug it in, it will work, you know. It comes with a new configuration model. It supports JSON and INI files, for instance. More flexible, the key value stores that we all are more used to. No more web configs, you know, the stuff that we love. There's new logging. I'm not going to go into there can be a whole talk on logging, because logging can be flexible. Logging can be event-driven. It's awesome. And then last but not least, your application frameworks, which is your MVC Signal R and your identity application frameworks. I've mentioned this before. There's one MVC for ASP.NET, which includes functionality of the old MVC and the new MVC, but model view controller, the whole idea. Web APIs and web pages together, it's called MVC. Not MVC 6, not MVC 1, not MVC for ASP.NET Core. That's the official title that they're marketing as. I don't know if ASP at first is a good name, but we're not the marketing guys, so we can't really say anything about it. So MVC specific features. Now I'm going to drill very quickly, maybe I've got some time, through these functionality. I'm going to actually show you these functionality in a project and show you actually how to build one of these little cool components. And then later on I'm going to start from scratch, you know, using Visual Studio Code and build up a server and then build it out as an API and then make it run. And hopefully it will work. So, and hopefully I can also get applause, you know. So the unified concepts idea is answered in the previous slide, where they bring everything together. But the whole benefit of being run on top of ASP.NET Core, you get all those benefits of DI and all those benefits of hosting and all that stuff you can get from within that application or that web application framework. It supports a self-hosted scenario, which is the Kestrel managed server, or yet again IIS if you're still traditional and like your IIS, and you know, because it's still a supported server and it still works wonderfully. I mentioned also integrated DI, but you can integrate this, you know, I said everywhere from anywhere, into your middleware, into your actions, into your filters, into not actions, into your controllers, into your filters, even your views now. That's a new feature. View injection in MVC 6, it's awesome. I don't know why you want to use it though, but it's kind of awesome to know you can just inject stuff there. So, and then there's the notion of view components and tag helpers. Now the view components are more like the old action, render action, or the actions on the views. If you want to render an action, it's kind of that little logic. They've now made view components. Tag helpers is very cool. I'll show you that in a bit. And then you can now do asynchronous stuff inside your views as well. I don't believe you could do it earlier, but you can do it async now. You can, and it's got obviously C#6 support. So without any further ado, let's jump into some demos. See if I can share my screen again. You guys can't see there, right? So I'm gonna do that. You can see myself. That's cool. There's that. Now we need to. Okay. Actually, you can kill that guy there. Okay, so let me see. There's demos. There's demo 1. So I've got a. Can anyone? No, they can't see there, can they? No. Duplicate. There we go. You must say if you can't see, you mustn't just keep quiet. Otherwise, I'm demoing this for myself. You know, take a selfie and post. No. Okay, so this is Visual Studio 2015. Am I going fast enough? Slow enough? Tanya, you have a question? You can't see my screen. Ah, I see. Let's see, entire screen, share. Now, can you see my screen? Awesome. Okay, so this is Visual Studio 2015. I made a file new project. Literally, we went file new project there. And then from the web, you choose a ASP.NET web application. And then pick a template. I just picked this template. For the demo purposes, I've extended it a bit to show view components and tag helpers a bit more. But in essence, this is the demo. This is the template I literally used, picked it up and work with it. Let me see what I have some notes here that I actually want to follow through. I tend to forget things. So let us run this guy. This thing's not open, is it? Where's my? There we go. Strange. Okay, so from the bat, when you open this up, you can see that, will this work? Yeah. You can see that it looks sort of kind of maybe of similar-ish, you know, to the MVC guys. There's controllers, there's models, there's view models, there's views, and then there's the rest of it. But note, no web config. I'll get to that in a sec. But the idea is this is intentional. It needed to look similar, you know, for migration purposes and for knowledge and that kind of stuff. This was completely intentional. How do I close this guy? So probably, I have no, how do you work this thing? Magnifier, exit. Cool. So from the bat, to show you how it works, just like in developer does hit F5 and hope it works. And looks like it's working. That's not working. Determine the process ID, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's just see if it works again. Something is not right. Maybe because there's two or more. DNX, there we go, end task guy. Doesn't want to end task. Give me a sec. Try this again. So slow. Okay, let's hope it works. Please work. Yay, works. Okay, now it's going to load, and to give you some hint, it's going to say localhost 35,077.0. This is the page you'll get. Normal IIS Express hosting. This is the basic template, etc. But out of the box, oh, I see myself again. Out of the box, like I've mentioned, it comes with self-hosting. Now, if you go web there, from the tooling and Visual Studio now, you can select web, and when you run this again, instead of booting up IIS, this will boot up the host. This will boot up the cacheful host and run in process at port 5000. So now, if I open a real web browser, I need to say these things, you know, and go to localhost 5000, we should kind of maybe see the same picture. Haven't touched code, haven't done anything, literally changed deployment, and it works. Maybe where's it? A Raspberry Pi? Let's just plug it in and see if it works. It probably will. Yeah. It works on my Mac. Let me see what else is there. Okay, so let's see how that works actually. So if we move back, I just want to close this whole thing. We can get like cool diagnostics and stuff. So if we open this up, the whole magic starts at the startup file. So if we investigate the startup file, there's a constructor there, and we don't really need to see what's there. But there are two main ideas in the startup file: is the configure services and the configure method. In configure services, you determine which services you want to inject. You add stuff like you add SQL, you add identity, you add MVC, you add your own services, meaning your own dependencies in your application. And then going lower, down the chain. Here at configure, this is actually configuration of the request pipeline. So then you use these kind of things. So for instance, if it's development, you use the browser link, you use developer exception page, you use database error page, etc. If you go a bit down, then I want to use the IIS platform handler. Now that's a little thing. Instead of using DNX to net, the IIS platform handler does the same thing. So if you're hosting it on IIS, it will forward a request to the DNX anyway. So underlying, it's running under DNX. So just passing the requests along. Static files, identity, and then last but not least is the MVC that we use here. Now, without any route specification, it can also work using the vanilla routes given from the server. But you can also in MVC, when you say use MVC, it does that configuration underlying for you. A few things is new now. You can actually specify your template in line instead of doing the whole anonymous object kind of thing. You can say controller is home. I don't really like this way because there's magic strings. But in any case, the world needs magic. The cool thing is that we can now say, for instance, if I have a action on a certain controller, and this is go to home. What the hell? Go to home. Let's make a controller. I'm going to make a Web API controller, for instance. Yeah, int get value. ID, don't see me type. I don't like typing in front of people. So let's see C#6 stuff. Huh? Return 42. Okay. So let's say hello, fix up, and then we'll include the ID in there. Again, cool. That should no, this would be string. Cool. So that should hopefully work. So now when I run this, again, on a real browser, and if I go to home get value, is it? And pass in a value, because the template is controller action blah, the ID. It's not compulsory, because there's a little question mark dictating that. If I run that, get value, give me a value, that value. And this will work. Hello, fix up, blah. So this is the whole idea of routing for those of you who don't know. But now the cool thing is, you can with routing you can limit it to be an integer, because technically, if I say get value and if I say blah, it's still a valid value, right? But it's not an integer. But the model binding will not really work. So this thing is not running. It just shows you it actually works in process. Just want to take this out. Oops. Run this. Come on. You see, hello fix up 0, because it can't bind. It's expecting an int, but it can't bind blah to int. So it's going to the default value of 0. So to fix that, and that's also in the old MVC world, you have to do ifs around it, and hopefully it will work and all that stuff. Now we can actually go have an int and say this constraint on this route, I'm expecting an int, nothing else. Anything else must be 404. 404. So running this again in a browser that's now closed. Get value, just see if it works still. There we go. But now if I go to blah, 404, that's what we expect. We don't want to go anywhere else. We want to fall in that trap of 404, because technically that's a constraint on that route. What's next? Let's see. So the fallback on routes is also a new thing. So let's say if we have a new route determined here, call this default 1. I'm going to point this to home. Let's point this to the about page, for instance. Make that go back where it was. If I no, this is not right. Sorry. let's say I want to say /blah. For instance, I like blah. Blah is cool. As a default, we can say, okay, it is new object, controller. Here's a home controller. Action is about. Yeah, we'll leave that as it is. And so that's the default stuff. When we go to blah, /blah, it will go to the about page. So let's hope that works. Actually, gonna go back to Ice Express and see if that works. Maybe a bit better instead of starting up and down again and whatnot. So there's our website again. Yes. So say /blah. It goes to about. Oh, yes. No, and okay. Wait for it. So now, what will happen if I go to an action that does not exist normally? So normally, if I say I want to go to that action, it will normally just break, right? So the idea is not to break. The idea is to go to the next possible route. So let's see if this works. I just saved. I haven't compiled anything yet. And then I need to go to a page again. So now, if I hit F5, or not F5, F5, go to blah, it should go. You should do anything. I don't know why it's doing that. Let's see. Because it doesn't have an action. So let's just see, where's that thing? Why isn't it doing it now? I'm missing something, obviously. Maybe it's not doing it on, maybe it's something like this. Let's see. If this doesn't work, and we're going to move on, but you get the idea. It needs to fall back to the home instead of the actual 404 page. So hopefully, still get a 404. There's something wrong, something small I'm missing, but in any case, moving on. There's time against me, so I'm just going to move on. So let's quickly dive into little view features. So inside MVC, we've got this view folder with all these views inside of there. If we go to the, let me see, let's say the layout page. And if we go down, so slow. Okay. There. You can actually go and do await HTML partial.async. So you can blast off as many as async calls as you want, and it will render them, and it will bring them back together for the last render moment. But the nice thing is also it supports flushing, so you can actually flush your stuff. Have any one of you worked with flushing responses out yet? So the cool thing is, let's say I've got a like this now. So see if I go to my main application, which is not running. My main application, let's try that again, which is running. Come now. Which is running. So let's say, for instance, I want to, there's something here that takes a while, and I don't know how, I can't control it. So I want to flush out at least until here to have that first visual on that screen. But because it's server-side rendered, I need to control that way. So I need to open that hose to spit out that first bytes as I get it. So just to show you quickly an example, yeah, the thing is so slow all of a sudden to be. So over here, I'm just going to quickly mimic a, what do you call it, a system.threading, a sort of a waiting call. Sleep for 4 seconds. So technically, when we run this again, and if I open this page, localhost, that page, and pay attention. If I click OK, it will not do anything. Sorry. So look, let's try this again. I can't type in front of people. What? No, this is the address bar. That's what I said. Let's try a different real browser. So it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and nothing happens. There we go. See, yeah, it's loaded. This is not really what we want. We want to see something, all right? So then we make use of Flush. So Flush, if I can find my Visual Studio. So Flush, if I say await Flush async, around again. Now, what should happen is if I open the website again, at least you will see everything that was rendered up until that point. At least your CSS and everything will be there and will be fetched. So let's try this again. Hopefully IE6 will work. So let's try this again. So won't give you that. Now, let's just close this guy. It's not going to doing. Okay. So you're ready. There we go. There's the page. 4, 5, 5. But you get the point. You know, it's going to load. And okay, so some of you might clap and etc. But we're not done yet. There's a view imports. View imports is also a new feature. View imports, basically, it's like a header file that sticks into all these views that it pumps out. So if we go to the view imports file, it will stick this whole thing as headers on your thing, so you can manage it at one place. No more web configs. It's CSHTML. You just put it in there. It can work. Let me just see where I am now. Okay. The cool thing is also the inject. I've mentioned earlier you can inject anything from anywhere, that theme. So going to the account page, let's log in actually. This is how you inject like your service. Can you read there? Your sign-in manager type of application user, you inject into this page and use it as a property, sign-in manager, without calling to a controller or anything first.
So can you inject multiple
Yes.
objects?
Yes. Yeah. You can inject anything that you add to your service, obviously. At that configuration service, if you add it there, it will be available. If you don't add it, it will be null. View components. So who has ever worked with view components before? You? Moi. View components are, like I mentioned earlier, it's like all the actions they render, but it's more like in a componentized manner. This is an example of the view component. Got a little get greeting async call that does stuff. But basically, it's a sort of almost like an action result. The whole class inherits from view component, and it has an invoke async or a normal invoke function. You can choose to use either or, and it will return a view that has the same name as greeting, that will live under your views folder, under shared, under components, under greeting, component's name obviously, and then default. If you want something else, you can specify return that view with that name, and it will render. So example of a view component is quickly jump back to ISExpress, because then I can actually run it the background without messing up so often. Oh yeah, the thing is on still, so I need to remove that quickly. Just give me a sec. Where's my view? There we go. Don't bore you guys with these things. So 5. Okay, it's business time. Great. So example of a view component was this about page. So I've added a view component in my about page. This is this guy here, the hello fix up incoming message with a line and stuff like that. This is my component that expects a greeting object and etc. So it's self-contained and can be rendered anywhere. If I go to my about page, no, that's not about page, there, this is how I call it. You say await if you want to use await, component, invoke async, and the name. You also can use name of and pass in the class name to be more like if you're about magic strings like I am. But this is readable and this is useful. Just last but not least, tag helpers are awesome. Whoever has ever seen like this before, old MVC, give this to a designer. He will give it to you back just like it is. There will be nothing done. There was this all HTML validation summary. Then you try to set like at class, what's at. Now all of a sudden you would try to set a what do you call it? A reserved word to text danger. It doesn't make sense. You know, there's a lambda, a y. It's not readable. So what tag helper does, what tag helpers do, it allows us to do it like this. So in your tags, like almost like the old classic ASP days, where you have ASP controller, for instance, you can map it to that controller, that action, that method. And the cool thing is it renders server side as it was still be rendered using the old way. And it's also, yet again, IntelliSense. It's not like magic strings. So I don't know if you can notice, it's like purplish, boldish color. So that means it's in tag helpers land. So you can use tag helpers. And the cool thing is I've built a tag helper, and it's very quickly to build one. I built a markdown tag helper using a component called what was this component? Common mark converter, for instance. So the idea of this tag helper, I've put it in the tag helpers folder, inherited from a tag helper base class, have some content, and yet again, process async, the same kind of pattern seems to follow through again. I'm not going to go through all these details, but it's basically checking whether it's is a content attribute or is actual child content in that tag. In essence, how you use it is very simple. This renders whatever it finds in that tag. If it's markdown, it will render it out as HTML. So this is a nice little extension like this. There's my little markdown tag. I put in markdown in here, and it will render out the HTML. So let's see how this works. Custom page, there's my markdown rendered as normal markdown. And it's all done by a tag helper. It's readable by developers as well. A thing to do note I've deliberately used a NuGet package that's not compatible with both frameworks, because every time you compile, if we go to the project.json file, I've actually skipped a step. This is the project.json file, by the way, everyone. It's no web config, but it's project.json. You can read up on it on the intraweb. But here you specify all the frameworks you want. You know, there's my .NET 4.6. There's my .NET Core. So every time you hit Control-Shift-B, it compiles it for those two frameworks. You can add your own. You can add 451 to compile for .NET 451, etc. Your own frameworks if you want to write one. It is cool. And there's all the commands. These commands, like if you run web, Visual Studio merely just picks up the commands and lists it in the little window. So if you run web, it will fire up the Kestrel, and the default settings of Kestrel will be booting up itself or the project it's running in. And that's why you can run on Kestrel-like using a web command. But in any case, so in my scenario, commonmark.net was not supported yet on .NET Core, and it will obviously error out if I try to compile it twice. So it will say, sorry, you can't. And the way around it is to use the ifdefs directives. And you can say, if it's .NET 4.6, use the implementation. If it's not, just return the syntax or do a not applicable exception or a not found exception or whatever you want to do. To prove that it works, you can actually, on your project, right-click, go to its properties, and you can use a specific runtime, because out of the box, it uses the normal Windows runtime. You could choose to only run on the bare metal .NET Core stuff. Then if I hit Control-Shift-B, now this is running on .NET Core underlying. Now if I go to custom page, see it's not rendering that. So it's because it's not implementing, it's not breaking the whole thing. It's just saying there's the implementation. Inside code, it's very easy to navigate through that by using this drop down here. You can go from 4.6 land to 5 land and see how it, in a sec, goes not gray. This is like in colors. And then when we go to the 4.6 land, it goes back again, sort of to show in what state or in what environment are we working in. Okay, you guys still cool? We're still probably good on time. I've got now basically 5 minutes left, I think. Should I quickly see if I can write something? Or okay, Tanya, good with time? Great. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. Who has ever used Visual Studio Code? I must actually stop talking. I talk so much. So I've got a demo here. This is the working demo. Yeah, I want to go to the working demo. If I'm running out of time, we'll just go to the API that's working. So I'm going to create a new folder, call it API, for instance. And inside here, I'm going to open Visual Studio Code like this. So this is Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to steal a setting from the working version to bring me back the coloring and the font size and all that stuff. So inside Visual Studio Code, I create a new file, project.json. This is the starting point of all our little development. And in here, from the bat, I've got IntelliSense. All of a sudden, it knows project.json is .NET related in this case. And it's bound to a XSD, which you can get there, and it will give you the sort of IntelliSense from there. So now, from the bat, let's say I want to use frameworks, DNX 446. So I'm starting from scratch. So if I'm doing something wrong, please bear with me. So DNX 50, DNX Core 50. Not there. Come now. Okay, 2 frameworks, awesome. Now there's a little bug I found. I need to exit and enter again because it doesn't pick it up that it's actually doing anything with .NET. So here I am in the folder again. First thing I want to do, I want to add a startup class. Okay, now I can hit to use the startup class. I'm going to build it myself a little server, a web server that spits out hello fix-up, a very, very bare bones server. I think that's all the time that we're going to be having that for. So we have this notion of dependencies. So that's the global dependencies and application framework, .NET framework specific dependencies you will actually specify in its own little scoped version. So we want to have Microsoft, not there, Microsoft.ASP.NET server Kestrel. I pull down the latest version. Come on. That guy there and put there. Now, if I hit save, look what happens on top. It picks up, hey, I'm trying to find the dependency. I can click restore. It will boot up the DNX. It will actually do DNU restore. This is the NuGet things. Now, when we go to the startup, just do that startup class again. Let's call it startup. And if we say public, was it void, configure, it's iApplication Builder. See, it's got nice IntelliSense, yeah, in Visual Studio Code. This can be done also on, okay, without the IntelliSense though, Notepad, Notepad++. What I'm doing now is separate from Visual Studio. Then what we do is app.start, or run, rather. We can give it a asynchronous context. And we say context.response.write async. Hello, fix up. And I need to resolve this guy. Boom. And I need to put the thing there. Okay, now I've built my server. I want to run it now, and let's build a command for that. So I'm going to be running Kestrel from a command. So I'm going to say commands, name anything. Give me a term, Dutch term, fix up. Let's say fix up, fix up. Awesome, very creative. Cool. So we have fix up. So now to run this guy, we open up. It's called Kestra. Thanks. Go to command line. So DNX. Later on, this will be the DNX world will be the .NET CLI. So it will be .NET something, but DNX. Fix up. There's my server. It starts up. Now I can actually browse to a Raspberry Pi if it's deployed there. Localhost 5000. It will say, "Hello, fix up." On bare bones, I've written a little server now. We're running out of time, but let me quickly show you how easy it is. Just on a working example, the same thing. Let me just actually open up this code. There's only thing I've added is this. Can you see there the greet controller? So the greet controller is a class I've added additionally. And in my project.json file, I've just added the core MVC bits. So you can author your functionality that you want from MVC. You want only the parts that matter. You want the full kitchen sink. If you want logging, you can author all these things in here. So I've added the core and I've added the formatters, for instance, and that's a bit. That's all. And then now in this case, it's called API. So my startup, I said in my configure services, add MVC Core and also add JSON formatters. And then yet again on the configure in the pipeline, I just say use MVC, and I can quickly run this. So if we say DNX API, there we go. And if we go to what was it? It was greeting. No, that's greet. I don't know what it was called. Was it greet or, you see, greet with a name. Now, I don't have time to go into this whole attribute routing thing, but it's allowing you to specify attribute routes on it. So if we go to greet, that doesn't work. Is it greet with a name? Yeah, greet Fanie. Hello Fanie. So this is that's a bare bones API that runs now on ASP.NET Core. How it works? Easy. It bounds name from that name there, and yeah, basically that is in a nutshell ASP.NET MVC Core. So any further questions, there's the link to get it, ASP.NET, get.asp.net. There's a bi-weekly community stand-up they do. And there's the GitHub page if you want to contribute to source code. And yet again, there's my website. Go say hi there. Thank you, guys. And I know it's late, but thank you very much for coming and listening to the talk. I believe Robert Jan wants to quickly have a word. Thanks. Bye.
Oké. Ja, goedenavond. Ik zal jullie niet heel lang storen. Ik ben Robert Jan, een commerciële economie student. Over 2 maanden niet meer als het goed is. Het afgelopen jaar heeft FixIT, waaronder Fanie, hebben een applicatie ontwikkeld. En voor mijn scriptie ben ik bezig om een usability en een user experience test af te nemen. Om op basis daarvan dan te kijken in hoeverre het aansluit bij de gebruikerskant. En eigenlijk zoek ik daar nog 2 à 3 testpersonen voor. En ik was eigenlijk benieuwd of hier mensen in de zaal interesse hebben om daaraan deel te nemen. Dat is in de week van 11 april tot en met de 15e. En dat kan op de locatie van die persoon.
Hoeveel tijd is het?
Een half uurtje. Heb ik dan een aanmelding? Ja? Oké, zo kom ik zo even bij. Heb ik nog iemand in de zaal die wil meedoen? Nog 1 iemand misschien?
Ja.
Ja? Jij wil ook meedoen? Top, heb ik er 2. Dankjewel.
Okay. Ja, weer eens hartelijk bedankt en ook hartelijk bedankt aan FixIT voor de leuke zaal en een leuke avond wat jullie geregeld hebben. Dank je wel, Ronald. En ja, dank jullie wel. Wij gaan aan het borrel nu, denk ik, als het goed is.
Ik wil nog 1 ding laten zien.
Oh ja, Marcel gaat nog 1 ding laten zien.
Je hebt het net gedaan op je Windows machine, maar dit is een Mac.
Ja.
En daar heb ik dezelfde demo als hij had. Met ASPNET. Die draait ook gewoon.
Oh, kijk. Leuk. Goed.
En dat, dus alles wat hij liet zien, doet hij dan ook. Dus DNX, DNU, Yo, daarmee kun je dan een scaffolding doen. Wat ook leuk is, dat recentelijk is Microsoft aangevoerd dat het wel ook op Linux kan draaien. Ja. Dat is wel een hele nieuwe trend.
Ja. Ja.
We willen geloven dat dit niet gaat lopen.
Ja, dat is nog tijd.
Daar heb ik een andere avond aan verkloot.
Huh? Ja, los maar nog.